Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'd like to reconvene the Thursday, November 10th meeting, 2022 meeting of the Lake Forest Board of Education. If you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I apologize for the voice and everything tonight. I know fighting is probably what a lot of you are fighting as well. Seems to be a little common up here. We're all going to get through it together. Again, thank you all for joining, those who joined in person and online. Just a reminder, we are streaming live across the internet this evening, and the minutes as well as recording the video will be posted online once approved. We'll start with roll call of board members. Dr. Wyatt?
Here.
Mrs. McCloskey?
Here.
Mrs. Starkey?
Here.
Vice President Rao? Here. And President Earl Dempsey serving as chair as president as well. We have all 5 board members present this evening. Thank you all for being here. Move on to 2.4, approval of agenda, Mr. Rao.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
2.5, approval of minutes. I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from October 27th as presented.
Second.
Have a motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Motion carries 4-0 with 1 abstention. On to 2.7, citizens participation. It's the opportunity for members of the public to address the board. We do this at each meeting, and if you had wished to do so, we ask you to sign up at the front and present your form to superintendent's office. We do not have anyone signed up this evening, so we will close citizens participation. We'll open up again at our next meeting. We're on section 3 reports. 3.1 financial report, Mr. Kirk Kellerman. Welcome, Kirk.
Good evening. For this evening, we do have the financial board report as of the end of October. So we're basically about a third of the way into the fiscal year. So we'll start off with the revenue report. As far as the state funds go, there's no really changes on that top half of the page for the revenue report. And as we move down into the local funds, that does reflect our largest tax deposit of the year now. So we do have a little over $4.6 million there. You can also see that most of our taxes are all still pretty much in alignment for percent received right now at about 86%. So that'll stay that way until we show that senior property tax, and that kind of skews things a little bit as soon as we account for that. And then moving on down to the federal funds, we now have our grant funds in for Title I, Title II, Title IV, and IDEA and Perkins. So those funds are all in. So overall, we're at 84% received of our projected revenues compared to 82% last year. Any questions on the revenue side?
Questions on revenue for Mr. Kellerman? So I did have one, Kurt. So as far as local funds go, I know it's early in the year from a calendar standpoint, but from a receipt standpoint, we've collected the bulk of our county tax dollars, which is to be expected. So given the fact that we've got the majority of it now at this point, any indication or what you're hearing or trends, or do you think we'll be above what we projected, below what we projected, or still?
I would probably continue to say that I think we'll be above what we projected. So I looked back at the last 2 years in terms of current expense tax receipts. And so when we look at this report and we see current expense tax receipts, it really also includes that line above it on the state section that says other state revenue, because that's basically our senior property tax credit. And those two combined make up all of our current expense tax receipts. So that's just the state trying to compensate us for the lost current expense tax receipts from those senior property tax credits. And so over the last 2 years, we've been, in comparison to what the Kent County has said our assessments will be and what we project our revenues to be, we're always about, a percent to a couple percent above what we think we will be. And so when we look at this number that we have up there right now, 4.6 million, we're about 2% above where we were last year.
Okay.
In terms of current expense tax receipt collections. And so the rest of the way out, it says right now, based on what I put up there for the budget, 435, but we run about probably for the rest of the year, 430 to 460, somewhere in there is probably what we could anticipate. We might get a little bit more than that, but that won't be too far off.
And there's no other big load that happens, right? It just trickles in. Whenever the county collects it, it's sent over to us.
Correct. Yeah, there's a little bit more on that. The one prior to this one is a fairly large in size, but not compared to this one. And then after that, yeah, everything's pretty much like the one we just got. We just got an email a few days ago about what the next one's going to be. It's like 111,000 or something like that. And so everything from here on out will probably be, less than 100,000 each month.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right, as we move down to the expenditure side of the report. For this first page on the expenditure side, for our SRO, our entire SRO budget has now been expended compared to last month. The other thing I'll point out are administrative services. This is substantially higher than this year than last year. We have about a 12% increase for our liability insurance this year, which is a really large increase. And then our trash collection costs are quite a bit higher again this year. So those are two factors that are driving up our administrative services expenses this year. As we move down further, local salary expenses, again, that makes up probably a little over 80% of our discretionary budget. And so right now, those are actually down compared to where we were the same time last year, which is kind of surprising. But we still do have to account for that 27th pay on the local side. And then moving down further, the transportation match, that's up 20% compared to last year. So that gives you an idea of our increase in transportation costs. As we move to page 2, and we look at the top of that section there, that's all the school spending. All our school spending is up about 15% across the board compared to last year. And then as we move down into the non-discretionary funds, tuition salaries are actually down compared to last year. We've been able to transition some folks that we traditionally pay from tuition salaries over to Division I. But our tuition payments are up a little bit this year. So a little bit of a give and take there. Overall discretionary budget remaining is at 65% compared to 63% last year. Probably thanks to those lower salary costs. And then the all funds, we have 70% remaining compared to 71% last year. So any questions on the expenditure side?
Questions on expenditures for Mr. Calvin? So 2 things, 1 comment and 1 question. So comment, appreciate you adding down at the bottom where we have both now compare discretionary budget as well as all funds. So appreciate that. And then just Division I salary. So knowing that this is basically July through October, so 4 months, so a third of the year. And if we look at what we've expended so far, simple math, I could multiply by 3 to see what we would spend for the entire year. That number ends up being fairly significantly higher than our budget number. I think that comes out to 26.6 million compared to 25.9. So it's like $710,000.
Right.
Is there, how do you justify that? Is that simple math flawed for some reason? Is things overloaded at the beginning or?
No, I would say you're spot on in terms of probably the totals.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, where we have a budget there of 25.9 million, I probably would anticipate when we put out the final budget in January, it will probably be more on the 26 point, maybe 8 or 9 side. So it will get revised upward. One thing I will say, when we create that budget at the beginning of the year, or when I created that particular budget at the beginning of the year, That particular total is exactly what was spent last year. So 25.9 million, the 25,915,000 was the exact amount that was spent last year. So now you would say, well, we know that we're gonna have an increase this year. We had a 2% salary increase across the board, and plus we have a 27th pay. But one of the reasons that I left that number the same is because I was trying to be a little bit conservative in the sense that last year we had earned about 255, 256 Division I units. And this year I think I take that back, it's 257. This year our guarantee was only going to be 255, so it was going to be less. So I tried to factor in that guarantee of less Division I units into the salary number for that preliminary budget when I created that. Now, the other thing I'll point out with this though is I'm not too concerned about what numbers in there too much, other than the fact that it's so big, it drives our percentage changes each month. The reason I say that is because whatever number we spend out of that Division I salary line, OMB will true up at the end of the year. So whether it's a deficit or a surplus, they're going to true it up at the end of the year. It's the only self-correcting account on the whole budget, really, because OMB basically has a contingency salary account. And so they account for the ebbs and flows in salaries across all the state agencies. And so if we get to the end of the year, because actually what they've loaded us up for this year is exactly 90% of that 25,915. And that's what they traditionally do. Whatever you spent the previous year, they preload you with 90% of that salary number. And so then as we get closer to the end of the year, they might put in more funds when they see that you're going to come up short. And then as we get in towards the last month of June, then they're really looking at what they think we're going to finish with. And so they'll just put whatever money needs to be in that account, whatever the spend is, because that's what they've committed to.
But so then that increase there on that line item, will that factor into a potential increase any other line item from our local funds?
I mean, you would think that if there's a correspondingly higher Division I salary number, there would be a correspondingly higher local salary number. That makes sense. To be honest with you, I can't explain why I'd have to do a little bit more digging, but I'm a little surprised that our local salary number is actually lower than where it was last year. Now, you know, there's still some cleanup we have to do in terms of staffing positions now that we know what our unit count is and who we can put against, you know, what positions. And so there's a lot of behind the scenes maneuvering of positions and so forth. And then we recode how they're paid from, you know, certain lines. So that number might change again, you know, and it might go up more than we anticipated.
So, yeah, I mean, it's only 3%, right? So it doesn't sound like a lot, but 3% of a very large number. And if you translate that over to the Division III, that ends up being 3% higher for the year as well. So that's $300,000 that we haven't budgeted in. So that was where my question or somewhat of a potential concern came from. So
yeah, and we've budgeted more than that for the local salary. I mean, we've accounted for not only the 2% local salary increase, but we've also accounted for the 27th pay. But what we don't account for is the fact that we earned 265 Division I units, which is, you know, the most we ever earned. So,
all right. Well, thank you. Anything else for Mr. Conley? All right. Thank you. Move on to 3.2 Superintendent Report. Welcome, Dr. Lucas.
Thank you. Good evening, Spartan family. In honor of Veterans Day tomorrow, I'd like to recognize all our veterans in the district. That's you just sitting out there right now. Our veterans have proudly served the station since its beginning and have preserved freedom and liberty, not only here in America, but across the globe. It would be hard to imagine what the world would be like without these brave Americans. So thank you to all who have served. And I ask everyone to think of our veterans tomorrow. And if you know somebody who served, tell them how much you appreciate their sacrifice. The district is closed tomorrow in honor of Veterans Day, and then we'll return for a full week of school next week. We're then closed for students the week of 21 to 25 November for parent-teacher conferences, staff development, and Thanksgiving. So please consult your school calendar and stay up on all district and school events. Let's see, don't forget about the Gobble Wobble, November 20th, next Sunday. at North Elementary School. This great event helps raise money for the Lake Forest Community Education Foundation. It's a lot of fun for a great cause, so see everybody there. Speaking of district events, the first marking period's in the books and report cards have been made available in the Home Access Center. So please reach out to your students' teachers, school counselor, or administrator if you have any questions or concerns about your students' grades, or if you need a paper copy of the report card. I'd like to repeat an announcement that we are soliciting volunteers to participate in a committee to help guide the funding of our schools for the next several years. And one of the items on that the committee will address is taxation. So we really need some input from the community. Our first committee meeting will be November 30th at the high school. And we encourage anybody interested in participating, please click on the link on the main page of our website or just give us a call here at the central office. Finally, I want to let everyone know the school choice window opened this week, Monday, November 7th, and applications can be submitted up until January 11th at 11:59 p.m. Information can be found also on our district website under the parent tab. That's all I have. Thank you. Yield the floor back to President Dempsey for any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Lucas. Questions or discussion for Dr. Lucas and Superintendent's report. All right, thank you again, sir. Thank you. On to 3.3 LFEA report, Mr. Ben Black. Welcome, Mr. Black.
Thank you. Good evening. So the first thing, like Dr. Lucas said, we're in the second marking period now. The staff is working hard to give our students the best education we can provide, along with other services. Even as we struggle with staff and student absences and open positions throughout the district. This is National School Psychology Week, so we thank the school psychologists and the work they do every day to provide services for the students so they can be successful in the classroom and outside of the classroom. As Dr. Lucas said, tomorrow is Veterans Day as well, and LFEA would like to also thank the veterans for their service. Next week is American Education Week. Wednesday is specifically for the ESPs, and Friday is for substitutes. So we thank them again for all they do for the students in the district. Over the next few weeks, it's going to be busy. We have the winter sports competitions begin. The winter season already began, but the competitions will start up soon. The National Honor Society and Junior Honor Society inductions, the high school play, sports banquets, concerts, and holiday events. The staff would love to see the board members come out and the administration as well, to come out to their events and see those and how much work they've done with the students. And LFEA wishes the board and the entire Lake Forest community a happy, healthy, and restful Thanksgiving break with their friends and loved ones. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Ben. Any questions or discussion for Mr. Black and LFEA report? Well, thank you again for being here. Thank you, Ms. Bolshek, as well. And thanks for all of you and all of our staff. Do wish you happy Thanksgiving. On to section 4, unfinished business. 4.1 board policy second readings. This is an action item, Mr. Ralph.
With the motion to approve resolution 4.1 with any modifications during discussion.
Second.
A motion on the floor properly seconded. We will have our normal discussion. We'll go through each of these one by one. Starting with BEDA. BEDA public hearings. During first reading, the board recommended this for removal. Any discussion on the removal of this policy? Thank you. Moving on, BEDF. Voting method at board meetings. Any discussion on this policy? Seeing none, move on to BEDI. News media services at board meetings. Any discussion on BEDI? Seeing none, move on to BEDK. Discussion on, reporting board meeting business. Mr. Rao.
The sentence that we added starts with wow. Needs a comment after information and lowercase button.
So it's been a little different. I crossed out the while and said, started to be every effort will be made to provide a meeting with authorized or approved information, semicolon, therefore, when individual board members receive requests. Does that seem feasible?
I'll just check what we had last year.
Yeah. And then yeah, that's fine. That's good. Anything else on this one? Thank you. Moving on to BF. School board work sessions and retreats and discussion on BF. Right, moving on, BGA, Board Policy Development, Policy Development System, discussion on BGA. Right, so now move on to BGC, Policy Revision and Review, discussion on BGC. I just had one thing when I read this the second time, that first word in the second line, consequences, it sounded negative. We know if outcomes or results might be better. We're just talking about evaluating policies and the consequences of its adopted policies. Consequences seems negative. False. Outcomes. Okay. Oh, yeah, well, we don't want to say resulting results. So,
Outcomes of its adopted policy or resulting.
but actually, we could probably just say in outcomes. Okay, thank you. Moving on, BHC, board communications with staff. Discussion on BHC. Seeing none, move on to BIA, new board member orientation. Discussion on BIA. Mrs. Sarkis.
Just in that first sentence, I think it's the magnitude of the Wake Forest Board of Education leadership.
I think it's actually talking about the magnitude of membership,
Okay.
membership of with the board. So,
Okay, I got you. Fine.
So if we take out Lake Forest Board of Education, the magnitude of membership. we will-
Okay.
all right. Seeing nothing else, move on to BIB. Excuse me, board member development opportunities. Discussion on BIB. Seeing none, move on to BKA, liaison with school boards associations. Discussion on BKA. Seeing none, move on to CBI, evaluation of superintendent. Discussion on CBI. And now move on to CHD, administration in the absence of policy. Any discussion on this policy? So now move on to FG, board inspection and acceptance of new facilities. Any discussion on this policy before us? See none, move on to HE, school board negotiating rights and responsibilities. Discussion on HE. See none, move on to our final policy, HF, school board negotiating agents. Any discussion on HF? Let's see none. We'll move back to the motion at hand. Any further discussion on the motion in the second we have before us? For approval of policies made with the changes made. All right, now we need to vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
Section 7, thank you, Mr. Carmen. Section 7 amendments, I make a motion to approve resolution 7.1 as written.
Second.
The motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, move to a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
Section 8 personnel resignations, I make a motion to approve resolutions 8.1, 8.3 as written.
Second.
The motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
Section 9 personnel retirements, I make a motion to approve resolution 9.1 and 9.2 as written.
Second.
The motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? I'd just like to point out that both ladies there are longtime employees of the district and will be missed. We wish them very well. Seeing no other discussion, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
Section 13, personnel offers of employment. I make a motion to approve resolutions 13.1 and 13.2 as written.
Second.
A motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
Section 15, personnel leaves of absence. I make a motion to approve resolutions 15.1 through 15.3 as written.
Second.
Excuse me. We have a motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
Section 17, personnel terminations. I make a motion to approve resolution 17.1, case number 012023 as written.
Second.
A motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
Section 8, personnel administrative contract renewal. I make a motion to approve the 2-year renewal for James W. Dick, resolution 18.1 as written.
Second.
A motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? All right, as has been common, a board procedure in the past, when we get to this section, each year we will conduct an individual roll call vote. So for each of these contract renewals, we'll ask each board member for their individual vote. Starting this evening, motion on the floor seconded. Dr. Wyatt,
Yes.
Ms. McCloskey,
Yes.
Mrs. Starkey,
Yes.
Mr. Rao,
Yes.
and chair votes yes, motion carries 5-0.
Section 18, personnel administrative contracts. I make a motion to approve the 2-year renewal for Lisa A. Fox, resolution 18.2 as written.
Second.
Got motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we move to a roll call vote. Dr. Wyatt,
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey,
Yes.
Mrs. Starkey,
Yes.
Mr. Rao,
Yes.
and chair votes yes, motion carries 5-0.
Section 18, personnel administrative contract renewal. I make a motion to approve the 2-year renewal for Sarah K. Huber, resolution 18.3 as written.
Second.
A motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, move to a roll call vote. Dr. Wyatt,
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey,
Yes.
Mrs. Starkey,
Yes.
Mr. Rao,
Yes.
the chair votes yes, motion carries 5-0.
And section 18, personnel administrative contract renewals. I make a motion to approve the 2-year renewal for Kurt J. Kellerman, resolution 18.4 as written.
Second.
A motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, move to a roll call vote. Dr. Wyatt,
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey,
Yes.
Mrs. Starkey,
Yes.
Mr. Rao,
Yes.
and chair votes yes, motion carries 5-0.
Section 18, personnel administrative contract renewals. I make a motion to approve the 2-year renewal for Stephen D. Lucas, resolution 18.5, superintendent report school district as written.
Second.
A motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, move to a roll call vote. Dr. Wyatt,
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey,
Yes.
Mrs. Starkey,
Yes.
Mr. Rao,
Yes.
and chair votes yes, motion carries 5-0.
And section 18, personnel administrative contract renewal. Make a motion to approve the 2-year renewal for Kimberly P. Martinez, section, or excuse me, resolution 18.6 as written.
Second.
A motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, move to a vote. All those in favor? I'm sorry. I knew I was going to do that at least once this time. We'll move to a roll call vote. Dr. Wyatt,
Yes.
Mrs. McCloskey,
Yes.
Mrs. Starkey,
Yes.
Mr. Rao,
Yes.
and chair votes yes, motion carries 5-0.
And with section 18, personnel administrative contract renewal. Make a motion to approve the 2-year renewal for Jennifer A. Montano, resolution 18.7 as written.
Second.
A motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote. Dr. Wyatt,
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey,
Yes.
Mrs. Starkey,
Yes.
Mr. Rao,
Yes.
and chair votes yes, motion carries 5-0.
Staying in section 18, personnel administrative contract renewal. Make a motion to approve the 2-year renewal for Travis C. Mormon, resolution 18.8 as written.
Second.
A motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote. Dr. Wyatt,
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey,
Yes.
Mrs. Starkey,
Yes.
Mr. Rao.
Yes.
The chair votes yes, motion carries 5-0.
And section 3 personnel administrative contract renewal, to make a motion, we approve the 2-year renewal for Jeffrey B. Sheehan, resolution 18.9 as written.
Second.
Excuse me, we have a motion on the floor, properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote. Dr. Wyatt,
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey,
Yes.
Mrs. Starkey,
Yes.
Mr. Rao.
Yes.
The chair votes yes, motion carries 5-0.
And section 18 personnel administrative contract renewal, to make a motion, we approve the 2-year renewal for Carl J. Starr, resolution 18.10 as written.
Second.
A motion on the floor, properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote. Dr. Wyatt,
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey,
Yes.
Mrs. Starkey,
Yes.
Mr. Rao.
Yes.
The chair votes yes, motion carries 5-0.
And staying in section 18 personnel administrative contract renewals, and make a motion, we approve the 2-year renewal for Nicole A. Wright, resolution 18.11 as written.
Second.
A motion on the floor, properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote. Dr. Wyatt,
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey,
Yes.
Mrs. Starkey,
Yes.
Mr. Rao,
Yes.
and chair votes yes, motion carries 5-0.
And last but certainly not least, in section 18 personnel administrative contract renewal, to make a motion, we approve resolution 18.12 renewal for Brandy and Short. That is a 1.
Have motion on the floor, properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? So again, I always have to preface this vote as this is the one I hate each year after doing really great things for all the other administrators on this list. And again, thank you all for the job you're doing. Congratulations. This is one that this deck position being a grant funded position with us not knowing whether we will actually have the grant funding each year until much later in the year. This is one that we have to put forward now. The board conceivably will be voting no on this, but this one will come back to us typically in the June timeframe to be voted on again. So certainly this no vote is certainly no reflection on Mrs. Short and the job she's doing. Seeing no further discussion, we'll move to a roll call vote. Dr. Wyatt,
No.
Mrs. McCluskey,
No.
Mrs. Starkey,
No.
Mr. Rao.
No.
And chair votes no, motion fails 5-0.
Section 19 personnel appointments, and make a motion, we approve resolution 19.1 as written.
Second.
A motion on the floor, properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Abstaining.
That's just academic.
Oh, you didn't say number one. Okay. Well, let's do a revote then. I'm sorry. Got ahead of myself.
Okay, that motion was just for a resolution.
Just 19.1. I'm sorry. So 19.1, call for the vote again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
Staying in section 19 personnel appointments, I make a motion, we approve resolution 19.2 as written.
Second.
19.2, we have a motion properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Now I'm up to speed. Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
And chair abstains as well. This motion carries 3-0 with 2 abstentions. Thank you all for your patience with me.
And staying in other business, section 21, I don't approve, I'm actually gonna make a motion. I make a motion to approve resolutions 21.1 through 21.3 as written.
Second.
A motion on the floor, properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on this motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
Section 22, other business field trip, to make a motion, we approve resolution 22.1 as written.
Second.
A motion on the floor, properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
Finally, other business financial reports, section 23, I make a motion, we approve resolution 23.1 financial report as presented this evening.
Second.
A motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Rao. Thank you, Mrs. Starkey. Excuse me. We'll move on to section 25, board report, discussion, other items. 25.1, Delaware School Board Association, Mrs. Starkey.
Yeah, Mrs. McCloskey and myself could attend this one, so I'm just basically going off the minutes. I don't really have any personal input from this, but a couple of things that were in the minutes that I wanted to make sure we're all aware of. April 1st to the 3rd is the like the National School Board Convention in Orlando. So I'm not exactly sure when the early bird is, but I do think early registration is open right now, if anybody's interested in that.
December 12th.
Is the early bird deadline?
That's what.
Okay. So I don't know if anybody's planning on going to that or not, but that is happening. The only other thing that stood out to me in the minutes, and I did not send this to Jeff to attach, so I will send it to everybody, but Dr. Marinucci went through and talked about the legislation that they're really pushing for in 2023. And Jamie, have you been to a legislative meeting recently?
We had one, Dr. Wyatt.
Okay. So again, I can send this out to everybody, but just these are kind of the big ideas of what they're really pushing for the state, like student funding and making sure proper funding, school safety and security. We've talked about that a lot with the constables and the SROs, just making sure that that becomes a mainstay in the schools. Mental and behavioral health services, really pushing for that, advocating for that. Pre-kindergarten supports and really making sure that our pre-K facilities and funding is available for that. There's some more on here. I'll send it to everybody. SAT testing not being the sole measure, which would be wonderful. So I'll send that to everybody, but those are just kind of the things that they're working towards right now and advocating for. Next one is in January, I believe.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions for Mrs. Starkey? All right, thank you, Mrs. Starkey. 25.2 Legislative Committee, Mr. Rao.
Do not meet and do not meet any different.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Rao, the Legislative Committee? On to 25.3, go to the order, opportunity for board members to address any items not otherwise covered on the agenda. Floor is open. Mrs. Starkey.
I went to the Special Olympics basketball tournament, I guess it's been a couple weeks now, and just all around, just a fantastic job from the custodians being out in the parking lot and helping people park, because it's not really convenient to park there during the school day when the kids are parked there. So just their presence out there, to the band being involved, and the cheerleaders out there, and teachers and the high school students, and just it was just beautiful. And I can't remember his name, but the guy from Special Olympics, just some of the stuff he said about our district and just going above and beyond what other districts are doing. It really was, it was really a special day. So just congratulations and thanks to everybody who was a part of that. It had a lot of pride that day. So
In fact, we were asking to post the testimony for the program.
yeah.
And the fact that it was canceled 2 days prior because of the weather and
Yes.
scrambled for that day. So also well, it's great.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
We got Mr. Sheehan and Ms. Marquis back there. Thank you guys.
Thank you all very much for the work being done at Central. Floor is open for anything else. Would just like once again to recognize the hard work that everyone in the district is doing, all of our staff, all of our administrators, but specifically those administrators who were voted on tonight for 2-year renewal. Thank you for all that you have done. Thank you for all the big things you're going to continue to do for the district over these next 2 years and beyond. So thank you all. Last thing I'll just mention, our next meeting, this is our only meeting in November due to the Thanksgiving holiday. Our next meeting will not be until Thursday, December 8th. And again, that will be our only meeting in December due to the Christmas holiday. Seeing nothing else, I do not believe we have a need for executive session. So with that being said, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment. So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor properly seconded. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Another thing I should have said, since this is our only meeting in November, wish everyone a very safe and happy Thanksgiving with family and friends. That said, all in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all. Stay safe.